Good morning. I'm Dr. Karuna Singh, in charge of Political Science Department. I welcome you today to the national webinar titled Challenging Conventional Narratives, a Gender Dialogue. On behalf of our management, principal, and department, I welcome our esteemed speakers for session 1, Ms. Asha Vernikar and Mr. Charu Datta Panigrahi. I also welcome our second session speaker, who will be joining us little later, Professor Lakshmi Nanda, Principal Miranda House, Delhi University. We are honored to have them for our webinar. I welcome all our esteemed participants who have joined us from different parts of the country, as well as we have got few of our international participants as well. So I welcome faculties, research scholars, and students. And due to the overwhelming response, we have also created YouTube link. So some of us can join, some of the participants can join to our YouTube link as well. Welcome all. Divya?
So now, give the keynote address for today's session.
Good morning all and welcome to a national webinar on challenging conventional narratives, a gender dialogue. A very important topic which has been chosen by our Department of Political Science, and in today's context, it is very important that we deliberate on this topic. And one more very important thing is, many times we deliberate on various issues, but it is restricted just to the webinars. Okay, and writing the reports. What I expect is, let us imbibe in ourselves whatever is the outcome of today's webinar. Try to implement it, and each one and everyone starts implementing the outcomes of such webinars. Definitely, it is going to show the effect in the society. When we talk about the gender bias, as such, our Indian culture doesn't promote gender bias, I would say, because time immemorial, always the female counterpart is called as Shakti, and that itself talks a lot, saying that energy comes through this gender. I'm happy about this because we have a base of this gender, and also if you look into history, you will find that Indians ladies were the first to become teachers. They have become mathematicians in past. Then they have contributed to medical science. Even during the colonial rule, ladies have contributed a lot. If gender bias was there in the family, they would have not been able to achieve those great heights. However, having said that, in general, what we find, there is gender bias. When you are looking at the employment, when we are giving the opportunities to the ladies, are we having a bias? Are we having a bias when somebody occupies a higher position? Do you have doubts in your mind if they are going in defense? Do you have doubts in the minds if the ladies are performing such, suppose, a very, very difficult surgery? That talks a lot about it. We ourselves have sensed many a times when we are working that ladies are referred as weaker sex. So why they should be called as weaker? My first objection is if we are going for this talk on gender bias, first we have to eliminate that word weaker section. We are not a weaker section at all. We may be emotional section. And if emotion is considered as weakness, I think we are doing a great mistake. Emotions are required for the next generation to grow and to get that affection. Emotions are required, and nature has given us those emotions by and large. Does not mean that men don't have emotions. We have to look both as together for progress of. Recently, I was listening to one of the talks by a Japanese person some 7-8 years back. He said that India is growing because many ladies are coming into employment. Because Japanese also had some different type of structure. It was not a different type of structure. It was not the bias, but it was that most of the ladies are homemakers. That was a situation some 10 years back. And they have realized, and we have to also realize that if you are talking about the economy, then 50% of the population, which is ladies, has to be incorporated in this economy. And that is why the word women empowerment also comes in picture. So gender bias, women empowerment, and everything has got connection with GDP also. McKinsey Global Institute in its study says that GDP of India can touch $4.83 trillion by enabling women to take part in the economy. So if we are talking about the women empowerment, there shouldn't be the gender bias in employment. And if it is not there, then only think of all what we are saying that India will be superpower. India will catch up with GDP. What we are saying that India will rule the world. All these things is possible if 50% of the population is also coming in the mainstream. And for this, today's webinar will be of very, very importance. And those who are very happy, those who have joined online, I can see some 67 participants there, more perhaps yet to come. And even if we are able to develop this type of sense that our GDP will increase if the 50% lady population is economy, that itself will do a lot, because webinar should be like this. The thought should be taken from one webinar, passed to the other webinars, and like a chain it should go. So our success of Dempe College webinar will be not by holding the seminar and how many participated in it, how many have taken the message from this webinar,
implemented
implemented
it,
it,
and
and
passed this
pass this
message to
message
the
to the
rest
rest
of the
of the
country,
country or people,
because this
because
is
this is
national
national
one.
one. With this,
I would
I
say
would say
it is my
it is my
pleasure
pleasure
to
to
welcome
welcome
Mrs.
Mrs.
Asha
Asha
Verneker,
Veranekar to this webinar, the speaker, Charudatta Panigrahi,
also our
also our
second
second
speaker,
speaker. And I'm told that you are going
talk
to talk
about
about
the
the
gender
gender
equality and the
equality in
current
the current
issues.
issues.
We are going
You are
to
going to
cover these
cover these
topics.
topics.
I would
I would be very happy
that
that
all
all
the
the
participants
participants
are
are
very
very
serious in
serious in
attending this
attending this
webinar
webinar
and
and
taking the
taking the
message
message
back
back
home,
home,
implementing it.
implementing it.
And
And
later
later
we
we
will
will
be
be
joined by
joined by
Professor
Professor
Vijay
Vijayalakshmi
Nanda
Nanda
of
of
Miranda
Miranda
House.
House.
So
So uh,
I
I
welcome
welcome
both of
both
you.
of you at present, Asha and Charudat, to our college, maybe online.
We
We
always
always
wish
wish
to
to
have
have
offline
offline
seminars and
seminars and
workshops,
workshops,
but
but
this new
this new
platform has
platform
been
has been
given by
given by Corona
us,
to
and we
us,
are
and we
making
are
the
making
best
the
use
best
of
use
it.
of it.
That
That
even
even
the
the
people
people
from
from
faraway
faraway
places
places
have
joined
joined
our
our
webinars
webinars and
and
given
given
the
the
message.
message.
We are the
We are
first
the first
people, I
people,
think,
I
in
think, in
Goa
Goa
to hold
to hold
even
even
the
the
webinar
webinar
inviting Nobel
inviting Nobel
laureates.
laureates.
That was
That
not
was not
possible
possible
for
to
them
call them
in
in
person. So
person.
I
So
say
I
that
say that
that is the
that is the
blessing of
blessing of
Corona, though it
Corona,
has
though it
done
has
so
done
many
so
bad
many
things,
bad
that
things,
it
that
was
it was
we
we
were
were
able
able
to
to
invite
invite
very
very
prominent
prominent
personalities in
personalities
India
in
and
India and
abroad
abroad
online
online
and
and
conduct
conduct
various
various
webinars.
webinars.
Okay,
Okay, with this,
I
I
again
again
welcome
welcome
all
all
the
the
students here,
students here,
as well
as
as
well as
faculty, and
faculty,
of
and
course
of
the
course
resource
the resource
person.
person.
And
And
I
I
wish
wish
Department of
Department of
Political
Political
Science a
Science a
success
success in this
webinar,
webinar,
as
as
well
well
as I
as
am
I am
appreciating
appreciating the efforts taken by
Dr.
Dr.
Karuna
Karuna
Singh,
Singh,
Mukesh,
Mukesh,
and
and
Divya
Divya
for
for
organizing
organizing
this.
this webinar.
Thanks a
Thanks
lot
a lot,
for taking part, and have a
and have a
successful day.
successful day.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful address and to basically set our entire tone for this particular event. I welcome all our speakers on this platform today. Now, to basically set the context of what's needed and why are we here and what exactly are we here to discuss. I think it's a very, very common thing that we have heard of that inequality gets learned, equality needs teaching. So to put that into context, we are very well aware that after certain judgments, gender in its own platform has diversified in today's context. And to keep that in mind, with that diversification, we are also looking at gender is perhaps not the most easy conversation for people to have. Now, the most important for us to stress here is even though we have so many implementation policies, we have so many legislations waiting for us there, but then why are we looking at a weak implementation of all these policies? Why, even after consistent steps being taken in terms of law, why the same is not being effectively implemented on the ground? Therefore, it is very, very important for us to basically question that particular it's embedded. To discuss gender because with gender diversification and with different changes in the aspects of gender and without basic norms inclusive of gender, we question why certain conventional narratives are still conventional narratives in terms of how femininity and masculinity is still seen as the hardcore differentiation. And these not taken as just mere traits. All that into perspective, we'll have a first session wherein we are going to focus on gender as a social construct, wherein we are going to see what are the fragmented realities and the shared aspirations of people. Under this, we are going to explore how gender as it functions today is deeply rooted in great towards all, not just towards women, but also towards men. Socialization has exaggerated the biological differences into hard-caged concepts of femininity and masculinity. Is a great disservice to one's individuality. Gender equality, therefore, does not become a virtue, but rather an inclusive issue of gender. For this particular session, we have our two speakers, Ms. Asha Venkat and Charlotte Pandit, who will be joining us on this particular. Ms. Asha Venkat is the manager of World Livelihood Forum. From a teacher to working in various national and international institutions of higher education, she also sees the objective of educating of insight and the best social for the year 2020. NGO, World Livelihood Forum, Asha is also taking forward environment perspectives and trying to bring up the important drama of the economic life. Poetry, film,
and environment are basically an extension of the rights of human rights. Asha Venkat is also a member of Bosch companies in various industries. She has a wide working experience
she has a wide
by
working
serving
experience
communities,
by the
including
community
sex
assisted
workers
in
and also
work and also the population. I thank you, welcome you, ma'am.
our next speaker is going to be continuing with the first session.
First session is Mr. Charlotte Pandit, who is also an renowned thinker of the country. He
Voice is
tackled
breaking,
for
voice is not
decades
clear.
in developing the women's
To the last
to
one,
the last mile
with close working relations.
with speakers. I hope you all
Nothing.
so right now
Yeah, I mean, these two words are audible, but if you speak a sentence, then we'll know better.
Alright. So we would
so
also
we would
welcome
also
Mr.
welcome
Charles
Mr. Charles Pandit and
who's
who's
an now
also
thinking of
now
the
thinking
country.
of the country.
He has put an overtake
Is put over
work
the
in
work
the development
in the
of
development
women-led
of
urban
women
entities up till the last
up to
mile
the last
economy
mile
and with the
economy
close
with
working
the close
relations with
working
the
relations with the
policymakers,
policymakers,
parliamentarians and
parliamentarians,
governments.
and governments. He has been long and having a fruitful
With
involvement
policy
with
and with
policy
also
and with also
on the
looking into
ground
the on-ground
effective
effective
implementation of the same.
implementation of the same.
Charitata Pandit
Charitata
is also a
Panditji is
very
also a
famous
very
case study.
famous
He possesses these direct work experience with the women president aims to development programs for and has written many policy papers. Studying for social work in Goa and is a very,
Mostly, he
very
devotes his time for social work in Goa and is a very, very well-known public speaker. So now I would request both our speakers to please take forward with the first session.
Thank you, Divya, and good morning, everyone. Principal, Madam Karuna Singh, Divya Parmar, and all the lot of these webinar from all across, not only in Goa, but from all across India. Many researchers, academicians, students. So I welcome each and everyone. Without my talk today is on gender equality. So I think gender equality basically begins in mind, and it is an individual's perception of treating another person at par with himself or herself. It does not happen in one day. It's more of a practice that you do every day. We have begun to raise daughters more like sons, but few have the courage to raise our sons more like daughters. Every child deserves to reach her or his full potential. But gender inequalities in their lives and in the lives of those who care for them hinder this reality. Wherever they live in India, girls and boys see gender inequality in their homes and communities every day, in textbooks, in movies, in the media, and among men and women who provide their care and support. Across India, gender inequality results in unequal opportunities. And while it impacts on the lives of both genders, statistically, it is the girls that are the most disadvantaged. What are the root causes of gender inequality? Gender inequality is especially tragic not only because it excludes women from basic social opportunities, but also because it gravely imperils the life prospects of future generations. Indian families often prefer boys to girls, and female feticide is tragically common. In India, 200 women died for every 1 lakh childbirths. According to the census 2011, the sex ratio in India is 927 females to 1000 males. Has become very common and started areas. Female infanticides practices are still continuous in India. What are the factors for this? At work, this disparity is visible through a different working environment for women. Unequal wages, undignified treatment, sexual harassment, higher working hours, engagement in harmful industries, occupational hazards, working roughly twice as many hours as men, and nearly 27% of women are accounted by unpaid activities. Violence against women is also prominent in India, which leads to every 42 minutes a sexual harassment occurring, every 43 minutes a woman kidnapped, and every 93 minutes a woman is burned for dowry. Every 26 minutes a woman is molested, and every 34 minutes rape takes place. Most of the time, the rapes involve girls under age of 16 years. At workplace, the gender gap, because of social norms subject to women to domesticity, they often have to stay at home and look after the young and the elderly. Women in India spend around 5 hours a day on unpaid care work, while men devote mere half an hour on average. This disproportionate burden on unpaid care work by women means they lose out on opportunities to participate in paid labor or are forced to undertake paid labor, leading to their time poverty and loss in well being. These causes of gender inequality in India create an imbalanced system that leaves women vulnerable. A survey of 1,000 households across the central Indian states of Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Uttar Pradesh last year revealed that people thought it was acceptable to criticize and beat women if they slipped up while carrying out unpaid care work. In turn, violence continuously sets women back economically. Hello?
I know that. Which are the things you सामने दो में
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes, yes. Then I'll continue.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, is it possible that you can put it on full screen, the slideshow?
Yes, yes.
Would
We'll
it be
put it.
possible?
Yes, I'll put it.
Yes. And request to all the participant, uh, kindly keep your microphone mute. Ma'am, continue.
Yes. Full screen कर दिया. Gender-based violence, we can see that global statistics on violence against women show that 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced intimate partner violence in their lifetime, as per the WHO 2017 report. As per the UN, 18% of women and girls aged between 15 to 49 years who have ever been in relationship have experienced physical violence by an intimate partner in the previous 12 months. Furthermore, 38% of all murders of women are committed by male intimate partners, as per the WHO 2017 report. This figure does not even account for all the other forms of violence against women, that is, sexual harassment, kidnapping, and abduction. Violence against women is deep rooted in unjust, unequal power and gender relations, transcends social and economic boundaries, and affects women and girls of all socio-economic backgrounds. This is a human rights violation with significant impacts on victims, their families, and communities, and is a growing concern both for India and the world. In addition to the deep psychological and physical harm inflicted on its victims, violence against women entails significant social and economic costs. In some countries, for instance, violence against women is estimated to cost up to 3.7 of their GDP, which is more than double of what some countries spend on education, as per the World Bank 2019 report. Despite international and national efforts, such as the Sustainable Development Goals and National Plan of Action, which creates uh, for the elimination of violence against women, investments remain insufficient. Where female labor force participation is concerned, rate was 18.6% in 2019, with a significant proportion currently engaged in unorganized sector. Further to this, women spend more hours at home and burdened with unpaid care work. This gender impact is also one of the reasons behind the high prevalence of violence against women. A recent Oxfam India report of 2020 study has revealed that households where men and women express greater acceptability of beating women there spend 42 minutes longer on paid and unpaid care work and 48 minutes loss on leisure activities. The same report also emphasized that unpaid care work is the primary responsibility of the women, and if she commits a mistake by not performing her duties, she must be punished. As per the 2000 report, 1 woman died per hour in India because of dowry. 4 women were raped every hour in India. 14 cases have been registered under current cruelty by husband every hour in India. Then there was COVID-19 impact on women against violence against women. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, people throughout the world have been affected across a number of dimensions in terms of access to health, education, financial resources, etc. These effects were more distinct for women and girls due to pre-existing gendered cultural biases and social norms that make them particularly vulnerable. The COVID-19 pandemic has aggravated pre-existing conditions of violence against women and worsened gender inequalities. COVID-19 has already posed challenges to women and children since the mandatory lockdown was imposed. Early data showed that violence against women had risen exponentially throughout India. Status
Ma'am,
of LGBTQ community in gender inequality.
ma'am, sorry to intervene. There are messages. If you could put it on full screen.
It is on full screen.
Ma'am, we cannot see it on full screen.
It has to be done by the host. I have put it on full screen. If the host can put it on full screen also.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
We'll see.
Yes, please see.
Ma'am,
Can you see it?
ma'am, this is actually you are presenting. We are not sharing your slides. So I think you have to go to slideshow, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, there on top it is written, no, ma'am.
Okay.
Somebody is there, ma'am, if somebody can help you out.
Yes.
On top,
Are you able to see now?
no, ma'am. You, ma'am, please go on top where you can see that orange line is there, no, home, right now. You go on slideshow, ma'am.
Okay, slideshow.
You take your cursor, ma'am. On top there is file, home, insert, draw, design.
We are doing it.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
see it now?
No, ma'am. It has yet not happened.
Okay.
Nobody, ma'am, you have,
No, I
because,
have an assistant and he is trying to do it.
yes.
Ma'am, may I help?
Yes.
Actually,
Divya?
yes, ma'am. Actually, you can just go to the slideshow and just you can just select from the first slide. Then it will be shown, ma'am.
Okay, go to
Slideshow
slide.
and from the first slide,
Okay. Yes. Slideshow में जाओ.
and you can see multiple options. The very first option is from the first slide.
Yeah. Yes. Can you see it now?
We can see the first slide, but ma'am, it is not in the slideshow mode, ma'am. Actually, you can see so many options on the top of the screen, na? Like file, home, as ma'am told you. Just on that bar, there is the option
Yes,
slideshow.
it is there. It is there. We have
Okay.
done it. I don't know why it's not happening.
Ma'am, it's already on slideshow on our laptop.
Sir, it is better to press the F5, sir.
It's already on F5 mode only, sir. It's on slideshow.
Ma'am, can you share your PPT with us? Within a minute, we will do it.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Send it to Divya. Meanwhile, you continue.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You continue, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll continue. Actually, it is going to just three slides are left. So I'll continue. That I was talking about LGBTQ.
Ma'am, you may continue.
Yeah, LGBTQ, when we say, is the term used for defining people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, or questioning. This group of people they are also known as homosexual. Around the world, gender equality is well-known issue in today's society. Not only is today's society, this issue seems to be in the past also. In past, homosexuality was not considered as equal and also denied by civil rights. These people also face harassment, discrimination, and the threat of violence because of their sexual orientation. LGBTQ community has many problems that they have to face. In some countries, being a member of LGBTQ community is model sin. These people continue to face discrimination and exclusion in society and violence. The majority of people who belong to this community hide their sexuality out of fear of losing their job. This youth experience dissatisfaction from their family and friends, invisibleness and harassment at school, which cause mental ill health, dropping on their school, and homelessness. This discrimination affects the main social good such as education, employment, healthcare, and housing of LGBTQ people. It is critical to enhance the value of girls by investing in the empowered and empowering them with education, life, skills, sports, and much more. By increasing the value of these people, whether they are girls or LGBTQ, we can collectively contribute to the achievement of specific results, some short term, like increasing access to education, reducing anemia, others medium term, ending child marriage, and others can be long term, like eliminating gender based sex selection. Changing the value of girls has to include men, women, and boys. It has to mobilize many sectors in society. Only then society's perception changes will the rights of all the girls, all the boys, and all members of LGBTQ community in India be fulfilled. The history of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer individuals in India beyond court cases and legal battles is peppered with personal stories, mobilized community efforts, building of literary, media, and archival resources, and social gatherings. The need to find employment avenues, financial security, career mentorship, nurture aspirations, and stand up on their own feet has always been central to these efforts. In the end, I want to say that until and unless we look after whether they are girls, LGBTQ community, if we don't take care of their health, like reducing excess female mortality under 5 and supporting equal care seeking behavior for girls and boys, for their nutrition, improving nutrition of women and girls, especially by promoting more equitable eating practices, or education, gender responsive support to enable out of school girls, boys to learn and enabling more gender responsive curriculum and pedagogy. For example, implementing new strategies for identifying vulnerable out of school girls and boys, overhaul of textbooks so that the language, images, and messages do not perpetuate gender stereotypes. And in the end, I want to say, you can see Malala Yousafzai. She says, I raised my voice not so I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. We cannot succeed when half of us are held back. So next time when a transgender comes and claps on your face, don't get scared. Don't be frightened. Just see the human face behind that clap. What is he or she trying to tell you? What are these females, we females, trying to tell the society? That please give us equal rights. Please accept us. The transgenders, they should not just become numbers. We even treat our animals with respect. But do they really exist for us? So, next time when you see a person on the road, the transgender begging, please see the human face behind that man or woman. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving this opportunity to be on the platform and talk to you all and share my thoughts with you. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am, for your enlightening session. Now I request Mr. Sarudutta Pallideli to continue from here. Ma'am.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. And good morning, Dempe College, respected principal ma'am, respected Dr. Karuna Singh. Hello, Divya Parmar, all the students. Hello, Asha. I can also see Dr. Nanda, Lakshmi Nanda of Miranda House. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here in this dialogue and in this very, as the principal ma'am put it very aptly, in this very unique dialogue. And I am completely with her when she says that this should not remain a dialogue only. There should be action. And Dempe College, in my opinion, should take the initiative of doing certain innovative programs involving all the students, all the faculty members, and everyone, and see to it that whatever we discuss here translates into action. And why I'm talking about this is because Goa Livelihoods Forum, the non-profit which is working as a think tank and an implementing agency in Goa, is all willing and all out to help and assist the students and others from the civil society who'd like to work on gender empowerment and gender rights. This is a very, very apt and very appropriate timing for this kind of a discussion to take place. And I thank my colleague Asha to have laid the grounds and to have taken us through the very important aspects of understanding this gender divide, this gender discrimination, and why we are talking what we are talking. And I'll take up from her and talk to you more about the action points. What do we do next? Now,
Sorry, sir, there was an error from my side. You can just turn on your mic and it will be okay. Yes, sir. Now you can turn on your mic and you can hear.
hello. So you haven't heard anything that I spoke so far, or have you heard some part of it?
So we heard some part of it.
We heard your introduction, and now just when you were beginning to speak, then we could not hear you
Thank you.
for the topic.
Thank you, Dr. Nanda. Thank you for the feedback. Appreciate that. I was coming to the action part of it, and I thank my colleague Asha to have told us about the construct, to have laid the foundation of this dialogue, of this discussion. And I was at a point where I was mentioning that all the students, the faculty members, all of us need to take a pledge today, and the pledge is to sensitize as many people as possible about such a basic thing. And I always, whenever I speak about the gender discrimination in our country, in our society, in our houses, in our communities, internationally, globally, I often find it very painful to understand, or rather to realize, how could we be acting against our own creators? It's a it's a very deep running psyche, a deep running thought process that we need to think about and we need to act upon. We are what we are because of our mothers, the creators. In every society across the globe, we extol them. We talk about the creator. We talk about how we have come to this world because of the creator. But when it comes to actually giving them, or not even giving them, that's not the right way of putting it, according them, or having their enabling them to have their own place which is much higher than the rest of the humanity, because humanity emanates from the mother, humanity emanates from womanhood, and womanhood is the basis of everything that we see around. It's the creation, it's serene, it's calm, it's everything that we perceive, it's everything that we think is the creation, and we go against that, and then come back whole circle, full circle, and say that if they are included, then this will be the GDP growth. So look at the um, hypocrisy that we're talking about, and look at the hypocrisy that we weave ourselves to make this a very interesting story. I was so happy when the principal ma'am mentioned about this, about the growth in GDP, which can happen if so many women join the workforce. Now, it's not only about the workforce, but it's also about the non-working force. Who talks about my mother? I am today what I am only because of my mother. My mother was not working. She was a housewife. She was a proud housewife. So who takes care of the house? Who takes care of the society? Who takes care of the country? Who takes care of the globe? The mother. And that's why we jealousy between mother and environment. And without that, we see what's happening today. It's all chaos. It's all destruction. I'm not saying, that we are heading towards the doom. Certainly not. But what I'm saying is, if this chaos can be understood, and the role of women, the place of women, the esteem of women can be restored, I think we can be a lot more in sync with nature, because nature is this gender that we're talking about. So, how about Tempe College? This is my suggestion. How about Tempe College, the students here, start a gender development index in the state? How can we think about having a study to look at a GDI? Let's call it a GDI. So a GDI vis-a-vis a GDP. So what's this gender development index? If we can work towards that in Goa, and we can present that as a model. In many places, something related has already been done, but this will be unique because we can have many other more factors which you've learned from other places, and we can do that in Goa and involve all the students. Let us go to the communities, let us go to the talukas, the village, the GPs, talk to the communities, get them involved, and start a process of internalization. So a GDI will help us not only in having an index or an index to measure, but also help us to understand the internalization or the ownership or the inclusiveness of the women in the community in this entire process. Now, when I'm talking about the women in the community, my second point on this would be how to engage men as partners. It's not only important to work with women, but it's also important to work with men. How do we sensitize them? Now, there is so much in social media, there is so much everywhere, there's so much of visibility on every issue in this world today. In spite of all this, isn't it very baffling to realize that men still have to be told about this? Isn't that a horribly discriminatory thing that's happening all around us? A discriminatory process that has still been continuing irrespective or in spite of all this sensitization that we do, or maybe our sensitization is not
And with
adequate,
this,
so we
should
have
be
to work
used
more
to
on
sum up the
strategic targeted intervention to sensitize
but
men as partners,
everything cannot be
MAP.
said. So
So first is the
this particular
GDI,
line,
the gender development index, and the internalization of the community, and then we are talking about
She's
men
professor
as
now.
partners. Now, when we
She's
involve men
professor.
as partners,
who
one
research
important thing
interests
that has to
into
be kept
gender
in
You
mind
can just
are
say
the stereotypes.
that she has
Now, as
numerous articles on gender.
someone very rightly
Okay.
mentioned, that stereotypes are what
PhD, we
we
don't have
see
to say
all
she's
around
already
us.
listening.
And for
She
equality,
has
we
worked
have to
here
take up dialogues, we have to take up trainings, we have to
and
take up
drafted
sensitization
policy on one
programs.
sentence.
So,
On
do
one
you
sentence.
think this kind of training can go on and
On
on
one
and
first
on?
sentence. This is
And this is already 75 years. After 25 years, we'll be completing a 100 years of this country. And do you think we should only talk about the economic growth when the basis of our society, the motherhood, the womanhood, is neglected, or I take the responsibility of
we have to call
neglecting that in
principles.
spite of me being sensitized over and over and over again?
she is
Do you think
close
this
to
should
completion.
I
continue
think
like
so.
this? I don't think it should continue like this.
First
I
sentence.
think the time to take this to the last mile, action this, and
And that one
prepare the
last
ground for a
last
very measurable and
what would
very
we have to call principle.
actionable and a very
I
time bound program, if I may say so, because if we don't put it under a capsule
She may join
program,
from her phone,
the
whatever.
interventions don't happen, and we realize and we know why they don't happen, because it has to be a mission mode activity. So the fourth point that I want to tell you and talk to you about is the mission mode approach of this. Let's have champions from this program, from all the attendants that are already here. Let's have a team of 5 or 10 people. Let's say in 22, by 22 this date next year, or 23 in this coming 12 months calendar period, we should be able to come up with 3 or 4 indicators of gender equality taking place in front of our eyes. There would be tangible, there would be intangible variables. But let's take the tangible ones first and say that these are the 2 or 3, whether we call them policy level drives, policy initiatives, or action points that can, should, must happen at the last mile. When I'm saying last mile again and again, what I mean is it should not be confined to high level meetings, discussions, or disseminations, or consultations, like they typically happen, but they should also percolate to the last point. How do we percolate that to the last point? What is this cascading effect that we're talking about? How will that happen? That will happen
Industry
if
department. So
this committee of
I
5 or 10 or
was saying that
15
if we
people,
could call
it's
her.
for all of us to decide on, or have an agenda of 3 or 4 items with a target, with
Tell
a
her to exit.
timeline, and then take
Tell her
this
to
forward
exit.
with a larger group at the GP level or taluka level. That again we can decide and take this forward. In this entire exercise, Goa Livelihoods Forum would be more than willing to partner with Dempe College, to partner with Pol Science Department, to partner with the students and take this forward. What will be a few desired outcomes that we all think of, because that's what we're discussing today morning. One, how do we ensure that women stand on their own? How do we ensure that they have a much bigger say in the household? That will happen if their economic independence is ensured. How will they be financially independent? They'll be financially independent if they are engaged in vocation, profession of their liking. How will that happen? If we map that, and if we map the aspirations of girls in schools, colleges, and also look at their way forward. So what are they going to do? How do we handhold them to a better future? How would they be engaged in gainful employment or self-employment? That's one aspect, a very big aspect of it. The second one is we already have self-help groups, and I'm talking about the senior women, not only the school-going girls or college-going girls, but the senior women. So we have to look at different age brackets. How do we enable the SHGs to take up a few programs and put that in the mandate and get them done in a year's time? So if we look at this entire thing on a mission mode approach, then I'm sure we will, next time when we have this kind of a discussion, we will have three, four, or even 2 points, or even one singular achievement to talk about and bring people from the community to speak here. And when that happens, and when they share their stories, and when we put all those stories in social media and make them viral, that would lend a lot of credibility to what they're doing. Today, I need to give credibility, credence, esteem to my mother, my sister, my wife, my spouse, my daughter. As a man, I think it's very painful to think that I have to do this, and I haven't done that so far. Isn't it so painful? Isn't it so derogative? Isn't it so regressive? And is this what we're looking at? Certainly not. So I would be looking at a more progressive, inclusive, ownership, involvement of all here in this webinar, and some who couldn't attend this webinar. I'm sure there'll be many who wanted to do that but couldn't for various reasons. Be involved in this and let us build our own mission. We are not always waiting for the government, the business, the civil society to do all this. What are we doing? Let's ask ourselves. What am I doing in my own house, in my own community, in my own mohalla? That's the question we should ask. And if we ask that question, we'll have the answers. Answers are very obvious. Answers are everywhere. We have a habit of complicating everything and going round and round. Let's not do that. It's very simple. So it's again patriarchal to say that let's give them the rightful place. No, who am I to give them the rightful place? I should rather know my rightful place and the limitations of my rightful place. So every place, if we have a template, if we have a framework in the society, everybody's role is assigned. So I should realize my role, not to step into somebody else's role, not to develop stereotypes, not to be narcissistic, not to realize that I know everything, not to say that or believe that I am the strongest, and not to have these, um, norms everywhere, right from films to literature to culture to art to education to employment to self-employment, everywhere. Not to always talk about, we should do this for them. We should do the empowerment. What are we talking about? What is this empowerment? And who am I to give the empowerment? all the schemes, public schemes, all the facilities for everyone. I need to know where I have to stop, where I have to stop the stereotypes. And that's where begins the equality story. So, welcome all of you to this equality story. Let's start working from now, today onwards. And I've spoken to you about the GVI, about the internalization, about men as partners, and about this mission mode approach. And let's do this in a very inclusive way, and let's all partner, every one of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful session. Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
We would
We
be
would be
having you
having you
back
back
for our
for our
concluding
concluding
session as
sessions
well.
as well.
Now,
Now,
I
I
would
would
ask
ask
the
the
principal
principal
ma'am
ma'am
to
to
please
please
welcome
welcome
Professor
Professor
Miranda,
Miranda, Professor Lakshmi Nanda of
Miranda
Miranda
House,
House,
Delhi
Delhi
University.
University.
Good morning and welcome, Madam
Professor
Professor
Vijay Lakshmi
Vijayalakshmi
Nanda
Nanda
to
to
the
the
Mumbai
Mumbai
College
College
of
of
Arts
Arts
and
and
Science.
Science.
Of
Of
course,
course,
in
in
online
online
mode,
mode,
we
we
would
would
have
have
been
been
very
very
happy
happy
to
to
have
have
you
you
amidst
amidst
us
us
for
for
this
this
national
national
webinar.
webinar. And this national conference is, ma'am, we are organizing because the Mumbai College of Arts and Science
Is
is
celebrating
celebrating
its
its 60th year of establishment.
and
And
this
this
60th
60th
year
year
of
of
establishment.
establishment, it started in June. Ours is the first college
In
in
Goa,
Goa,
soon established
established
soon
soon
after
after
Goa's
Goa's
liberation.
liberation.
Goa's
Goa's
liberation
liberation
was
was
on
on
19th
19th
December
December
1961,
1961,
and
and
in
in
June
June
6th
62, this college was
established.
established.
Thanks to
Thanks to
the
the philanthropist and
the
the
educationists
educationists
that
that
time
time
who
who
thought
thought
of
of giving education to
the
the
new
new
generation
generation
of
of
Goa.
Goa.
Portuguese
Portuguese
never
never
had
had
any,
any college in Goa,
and
and
all
all
had
had
to
to
go
go
beyond
beyond
Goa
Goa
to
to
get
get
education.
education.
So
So
this
this
was
was
the
the
first
first
institute
institute
of
of
higher
higher
learning
learning
in
in
the
the
state
state
of
of
Goa.
Goa.
And
And
in
in
order
order
to,
to,
mark
mark
our
our
this
this
thing,
thing to the founder members, we are celebrating this year by
organizing
organizing
national
national
conferences
conferences
and
and
international
international
conferences
conferences
by
by
each
each
and
and
every
every
department.
department.
And
And
I
I
take
take
pleasure
pleasure
in
in
welcoming
welcoming
Principal
Principal
Miranda,
Miranda, Principal of
Miranda
Miranda
House.
House.
Uh, we
We
are
are
very
very
proud
proud
to
to
accept
accept
your
your
this
this
thing,
thing
that
that
you
you
are
are
amidst
amidst
us.
us.
Always
Always,
when
when
we
we
see
see
the
the
NIRF
NIRF
ranking,
ranking,
Miranda
Miranda
House,
House,
we
we
find
find
it
it
on
on
the
the
top.
top.
And
And to have professor from this college
is
is
always
always
we
we
are
are
privileged
privileged
by
by
that.
that.
Thanks.
Thanks for accepting our invitation, madam. And you are going to touch upon the legal aspects of
Gender
gender
equity,
equity,
as
as
I'm
I'm
told.
told. Since morning, we have
Very, very
very
nice
nice
celebrations
celebrations
by
by
Mrs.
Mrs.
Asha
Asha
Bednekar
Bednekar
and
and
Mr.
Mr.
Charudatta,
Charudatta,
and
and
I
I
was
was
listening.
listening to him, his suggestions as well.
His
His
suggestions are well
suggestions are well
taken,
taken,
and
and
definitely
definitely, I feel whatever suggestions he has given, our organizer, Department of Political Science, should note down. And when they are organizing the next conference,
they
they
should
should
definitely
definitely
implement
implement
it.
it.
That
That
is
is
actually
actually
seeing
seeing
if
if
this
this
webinar
webinar
has created.
facilitated some changes in the life of somebody. So those stories have to come up definitely. With this, I
I again
again
welcome
welcome
all.
all to this national conference in virtual mode to Dampe College. Hope next time we have it physical mode, and we would be happy to
Call
call
you
you
and
and
give you
give you
our
our
hospitality
hospitality
in
in
Goa.
Goa. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, our second session is going to look around the legal aspects of the implementation of policies which we have seen in sync with gender. I would like to welcome Ma'am Vijay Lakshmi Nanda with a brief note on her to tell you all about her accomplishments. Professor Lakshmi Nanda Ma'am joined Miranda House in 1993 and is a professor in the Department of Political Science. She's currently also the principal of the college. Her basic research interests include gender, political theory, and human rights. She's also a recipient of the ICSSR Doctoral Fellowship and the Delhi University Vice Chancellor's Teachers Excellence Award in 2017. She's actively associated with a number of government and non-government organizations as an advisor on gender, policy, and advocacy programs for the youth. She has assisted various state governments in drawing and drafting policy related to women and girl child. As a policy analyst, she has extensively analyzed public policy relating to family planning, human trafficking, conditional cash transfers for the girl child, housing for women, etc. She's also been the external is also the external member of IIT's two organizations, that is Johnson and Mathen and Clinton Health Access Initiative. She has extensively traveled in India and abroad in connection with her academic research as well. Ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you on this platform with us, and it would be wonderful to have your insights on this particular issue. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. My gratitude to Principal Demfe College, Professor Vrinda Borkar. Thank you, ma'am, for this gracious invitation. My gratitude also to the Department of Political Science, Dr. Karuna Singh, Professor Divya Parmar. I particularly enjoyed the panel discussion before, just before this, which we had our speakers here, Ms. Asha Vernekar and Mr. Charudat Panigrahi, who's also a good friend and for whom I am here because I believe he has recommended my name for this particular session. Now, this I was also very struck by the note that you had sent me, where you say that the main theme of the conference is to address the big elephant in the room, gender equality. And you are looking not just at challenges, but as I understand from Charudat's discussion, we are also looking at opportunities to learn and to work in the field. We at Miranda House are a college which is committed to bringing about leadership of women. And our commitment to the leadership of women is not just for Miranda House, but it is by Miranda House, of Miranda House, and for Miranda House. But ultimately, it is for the nation state. And we believe that women must have a can-do sense of responsibility, a must-do sense of duty, apart from the fact that there are many challenges, and we would be able to instill that particular value in young women of today. I also agree with Mr. Charudat Panigrahi that men and boys should be engaged in this particular journey. I agree with Asha Vernekar ji when she says that you cannot just think of one gender, you will have to think of a rainbow genders. You have to think of the LGBTQIA movement. You will have to include, so the idea of inclusion, the idea of diversity, all of that needs to be included here. So now I have the task set out for me for the next 15, 20 minutes or 30 minutes. You will have to let me know the time. To look at what are the legal kind of opportunities that India has and what are the kind of challenges we have in order to bring about the implementation or to bring the society to a readiness to accept the kind of progressive legislation that is present in India. On that note, I would like to begin from where it all begins. All of you are aware that we have a constitution, and the father of the constitution or the major drafter of the constitution is Ambedkar, and we are all aware of his contribution. But many of us are not aware that there were 15 women in the drafting of the constitution itself, and they were members of the Constituent Assembly of India. We need to retrieve that history. And while we are retrieving that history, we have to also retrieve the idea of history, not as his story, but as her story. The moment we are able to do that, I do not believe that everything that happened in the past was wrong. In fact, I also do not believe in glorifying the past, but there is a lot that happened in the past which will give us indication as to how we have moved forward. When it comes to India's freedom struggle, I go a little back to India's freedom struggle. We talk about Gandhi as the father of the nation. But who is the mother of the nation? If Ambedkar ji is father of the constitution, Gandhi is father of the nation, we don't talk about the mothers. So if you need to talk about the mothers, because there is not one mother, and as Charudas ji told very well, these mothers are nameless, but they are in every home. Every home has a mother. But what does it have to do with law? And that's why the constitution I have set out for you. Women have contributed to the freedom struggle of India. And how did they contribute? They contributed by being part of the massive movement that Gandhi brought in, which was based on ahimsa and satya. You know, the whole idea of ahimsa and satya, whom did Gandhi learn it from? Gandhi learnt it from his mother. He learnt it from Kasturba Ma. And these are learnings that made Gandhi who he was. Gandhi was not your masculinist, strong, authoritative, coercive leader. He was your kind, generous, and including everyone, talking about nonviolence. Where did he learn? In fact, Gandhi himself attributes his understanding of understanding of the idea of fasting to Kasturba herself. And I will just give you one story. There was a time when he would not allow, and he was very, very patriarchal and regressive, which he himself admits in Experiments with Truth. And we all need to do that if you need to engage with the idea of legal and constitutional support to women and the social readiness for it. So if we rip open our own lives and our own kind of, conditions in which we have lived, Gandhi said that he wouldn't allow Kasturba to go to her natal home. It is a common enough problem in India where we have to seek permission to go to their natal homes. And in that, Gandhi says, Kasturba did not tell anything, but she went on a fast. She stopped eating. That is when he realized the kind of, opportunities that are there in women's struggle. Women know how to struggle. You don't have to teach them that. Women know how to protest. You don't have to teach them that. So I think this particular understanding of women, so you have his understanding of fasting, his breaking of the salt law, his idea of using the charkha and spinning wheel, all of these are very, very feminine, if I may say. I'm not even using the word feminist. These are feminine images. And Gandhi attributed his whole struggle to that, and women joined. He saw them in complementary role, and we have to be kind to Gandhi because he was a person of his times. But he did teach you, and women were part of it. So whatever came to the constitution in terms of women's equality, in terms of, in terms of, let's say, the fundamental rights, where you have progressive for women themselves, affirmative action for women, directive principles of state policy, all that is there for women, all kinds of support. We are a country which did not have to fight for the right to vote for women. Because if you look at the rest of the world, they were all fighting for the right to vote. We got it right there with our constitution. So when we got the right to vote, we got the right to participate in politics. We got all the rights that men got. There was a certain equality which is there in our constitution. Our constitution is the most equal document in that sense, diversity, inclusion, everything. Then what happened? Why did we not get the same rights as the men in our country? Or why do we continue to lament over gender inequality, which we should not be doing? 75 years of independence, our government or our state has not left any stones unturned to bring about equality of women in legal terms. So when we look at the constitution, look at the law, and every day there is a legislation which is being progressive and which is for women. So, I mean, there are regressive legislations, and the moment they are there, women will fight against it. So did we get it all together? No, we did not. There were a number of women's movements and other movements which participated to get women their rights or to get women those laws. Having said that, I now move to the 1970s, when the UN asked India and every other country to write a report and to find out the status of women, just like I think Charu Jadji told you, to bring about a gender development index. So what is the status of women in India? And many people were chosen who became a part of that committee. It was called the Committee Towards the Status of Women, and the report itself was called Towards Equality, 1974. And the women who came in, Latika Sarkar, Fulrenu Guha, Veena Mazumdar, they said, India is very equal. We've got all the rights. Why do we need to write towards equality? It is only in the West. And they were daughters of independence, that these problems are there. We have got all the rights here in our constitution. But when they started going into the field, which I think Charujat also referred to, they started realizing that there are some inequalities. And those inequalities are because of social barriers. So while you had formal equality, which is part of civil rights, you had political rights, but you did not have what is called as the substantive equality in your lives. So women had the right to vote, they had the right to participate in governance, but they were held back by domestic work, they were held back by the fact that they were not equal in the workforce, they were held back by sexual harassment, they were held back by the fact that mobility was not allowed to them, they were held back by social norms which controlled right to education, right to employment, right to reproductive rights, right to choices or informed and empowered choices. So they were held back. And that report made a point about all of that. What was found out to be the worst that came out of that report is something that I work very closely on. It was seen as son preference. We are plagued in this country, we are plagued by an intense son preference, leading to a declining child sex ratio. The sex ratio of India, 0 to 6 age group from the 2011 census, we haven't had the 2021 census, was one of the lowest in the world. You're looking at 919, 917 girls per boys. This also affects all states, including Goa. And I will end up by talking about the NFHS data, which will give you a true picture of where Goa stands now, apart from where India stands. So when you're looking very, very closely at this particular son preference, it is a combination. We have a law against it. The Prenatal Diagnostic Technique Regulation and Prevention of Misuse, or the PCPNDT Act, Preconception, Prenatal Diagnostic Technique, Prevention of Sex Selection. You must have seen, yahan ladka ya ladki aapko nahi bataya jayega, sex determination is not allowed. However, this continued as a profiteering medical market, unethical medical practices, in consonance with a lot of families which decided where their fertility choices were only about having boys. Why boys? Because boys will take care of families, boys will carry the family lineage, boys have access to property. Then the Indian government, let us say by 2005, gave you the right to property for all women, co-personers rights also. But do women have that property? Yet still women are signing off their property in the name of their brothers. Why? Because हमें प्यार नहीं मिलेगा, नेटल फैमिली का प्यार नहीं मिलेगा, भाई के साथ झगड़ा नहीं. Women are sacrificing. We must. But this is the law of the land. You are equal co-partners. You have the equal right to property. This is the law of the land which you and I should follow. The other point that comes in is dowry. Dowry continues unabated, and irrespective of a very, very strong law, which many people feel sometimes is misused, and yes, there is a possibility of misuse also, continues unabated. High spending on marriages continues unabated. Why is that not a readiness? What we do not understand is that the law says that the givers and the takers are both criminals, not just the takers, even the givers. That understanding, that readiness has to come about in society. That's a very, very important one. The next, I think, important law that is there is the Domestic Violence Act. The normalizing of domestic violence. Ek thappad hi to mara tha. What is the problem with that? All women saying that normalizing has to stop. And that is to stop because there is a law. The law very clearly looks at everything, even the way you look at women, even the way in which you treat them. So what is it that you are not being able to do in this field, that we are still not able to capture? Why so much domestic violence? Let me tell you, it is not just spousal violence. There is violence against older women, much, much older women, by both women and men. This violence against older women or elderly women is not being noted, but it is also one of the worst crimes. We keep talking about our mothers and glorifying our mothers, but we do not treat them as equals because they are not seen as assets in our society. So I think this is an important fact. The violence against elderly women, which is invisibilized, needs to be talked about. So asset ownership, agency for women, decision making. Women rarely take decisions in this country, and therefore why can't they be taking decisions? What is it that is stopping them? Where there are laws which are supporting them, all laws. I mean, the removal of the triple talaq, very progressive legislation. So we should not be hesitant in saying these are progressive legislations. They are. So we need to look closely. And sexual harassment at workplace, now very stringently being talked about by the state, by companies, and I'm part of various ICCs or internal complaint committees all societies have it, yet it continues unabated. Every time I meet a man, he says, मैंने गलत क्या कर दिया? ये तो कुछ भी नहीं बोला. I just said she's looking nice. What is so wrong with that? But you continue, or I was pursuing her. What is wrong with that? If I follow up, I just pursued her. How else am I supposed to win her affections? So I think mass media also continues to portray that. Lots of changes have come about. So this needs to be talked about, and this needs to be discussed. And yes, there are very, very great films that have been, Thappad was a good film which analyzed and reconstructed many of these notions about what exactly is violence, how it violates women, how it makes you feel. And I'm not just talking about women. Violence for anyone is bad. And we need to look at intersectionality, class, caste, community. The idea is not to replace the idea is to equality in the largest sense of equality, equality in all its diversity and inclusion. So how do you engage with that? That's a law that I think is very important. Right to property, right? But one area which continues to be, disturbing for all of us, and we are discussing it, women in the workforce. What has happened to women in the workforce, and why India continues to be seen as has not done, having done well there. I feel that one of the data that you need to look very closely at is the NFHS 5. The National Family Health Survey 2019-2021 is basically since 1992, institute very close to Goa, the International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai, has conducted the NFHS for Government of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And this survey, which has just been completed, I'll just give you certain facts. We should also think of good things. What is the better things? India's total fertility rate has decreased from 2.2 children per woman in 2015-16 to 2 children per woman in 2019-21. Although there are some states which are still high fertility, but population age 15 and below has declined from 28.6 to 26.5. However, we need to know what is happening to women. Women, the increase in family planning measures has increased. And this may be very good for you to know that almost 66.7% in 2021, we are getting it. Sex ratio in India, and I attribute this, and I am a neutral person, but I attribute this to the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, for all its critique, to have emerged with this. We actually have 991 to 1020 females per 1,000 between 2015 to 2021. There is an improvement. We may look at it, but more closely when the census comes in. But this improvement is very, very important. There has been improvement also in nutritional, indicators. There has been improvement in other kinds of conditions. Institutional births have also increased. Now, one thing that has increased in terms of women's health is that many women had below normal body mass index. So that has also improved. And however, women continue to be anemic. Anemia is a major condition for women. It continues. 53.8% of women in urban areas continue to be anemic, and we need to focus on nutritional security for women. Until they are in good health, how do you expect them to attribute? Even reproduction is a utilitarian, I feel, but how will they continue to exist and be able to work? And of course, there is improved sanitization, improved drinking water, and there are some health finance. But what is it when it comes to women's decision making? And that's very, very important. And I will just go through this. In urban areas, there is an increase in decision making. 91% women have improved. Rural areas also, women are participating in household decision making. I'm only speaking from the numbers. There has been a positive relationship with women's autonomy to make decisions regarding dietary diversity, better health, maternal health outcomes. However, participation in paid work continues to be very, very abysmal. All women work, but few are salaried. Like you said, your mother, but she's working. I won't say she's not working. She is working, Charu. because she is a working person, but she's not salaried. Only 25.4% of women aged 15 to 49 have worked in the last 12 months, because the NFHS asks only 25%, and they are getting paid in the last 12 months. They were paid in cash. Uh, there are, all the states, Bihar, UP, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, they have really, they're very low. Only 18% women are being paid for work. Only 18%, which means that they are all working, but they are not salaried. They are not drawing. Even they are not in the unorganized sector, they are not getting money. And that's an important one. And So this economic autonomy, or even looking at the monetary worth of women's labor, we say don't pay them, but at least recognize them as contributing to the GDP. That's important. Owning a saving banks, currently, if you take a look at the national level, there has been a jump in saving banks. And this could be credited to the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, maybe increasing of microfinance over the last 5 years. However, land ownership, employment in agriculture is very high, but women own very little land. Owning of mobile phone is another thing that is done. And, urban women have very high access to mobile phones, where their rural counterparts have less. And that needs to be looked at, because mobile phone access is access to communication networks, to safety, to education, to financial services. It is all bound up with some of this. And when you look at the gender development index for the world, India's position is at 140th amongst 156 countries. That is very, very low. And there is room for improvement. Greater efforts needs to be done, even for social development, goals, the SDG goals, which says that gender equality for a sustainable future is a matter of important, necessity. Now, I think there are many questions, but if you want, I can do this in the question hour time, and I can wrap up. Or if you want, I can talk about it now in terms of looking at Goa. How do we look at Goa? And because all these issues that I have talked to you about, the NFHS data, which is very much there, your state NFHS data, if I could share that with you, I'm not able to get the link. If I could get the link, I'll share it with you. But all I'm trying to say here is India is a legal paradise. No other state has the kind of maternity leave we have. No other country is constantly looking at women's rights. We have had a very active women's movement. We have a law against female feticide or sex selection. We have a law against domestic violence. We have a law against sexual harassment. We have equal right to property. We have equal right to work and wages. However, only 25% of our women are paid, and the rest of them are all working for free in care work, in all kinds of unpaid work. Even if it is unpaid work, they are not being recognized. On the other hand, and I think we need to talk about this in a more gender specific way, and my proposal here is that instead of making those the indices, which is more of it's a universal indice, India needs to develop its own indices. It's yes, I think even that I need to speak about, that political participation has improved, but it still remains abysmally low. Leadership in science education still remains, women in STEM remains low. I mean, these are things you have to look at, your fisheries, your other kinds of work. So this is a very, very important area. And I'm looking at women in higher education. While they are all teachers, when it comes to vice chancellors, you'll find very few women. When it comes to scientists' positions, you will have a lot of scientists at the middle or the tertiary level, but at the heading of the institution, you'll find less women. But apart from leadership, apart from political participation, I think there could also be a way of engaging with issues around women's health, women's contribution to the workforce. And instead of reinventing, we need to capture some of that. Is it always a lack of choice that makes women be caregivers? We need to ask that question. And if they are becoming caregivers, should we recognize them, or should we keep talking about it almost as if these are not empowered and informed choices? Do I make that decision as a woman, or do I make that decision as a why a particular person or a woman has decided not to have a career. I think some of these could be built through a community sense of where Indian women want to be. I would like to know, should we only look at universal indicators, important health indicators, education indicators, but leadership indicators? Should we reinvent that? Should we look at it from a more, should we create our own indicators in that? That Indian, what about a happiness index? About, what about a self-image index? What about a caregiving index where we recognize that women are contributing? Yes, we want them to be part of the paid workforce, but at the same time, can we recognize, without glorifying, but can we recognize that they are there? The woman who's, especially with today's time when we're looking at the great resignation, a lot of women have actually gone back to their homes to take care of children, or the COVID pandemic, to be caregivers. Do we need to engage that? What is it that we want? Do we want just sameness, or do we want gender equality in all its diversity and inclusion? Do we bring about a future where we are all not in a competitive mode but in a creative collaborative mode, and we are committed to compassion and empathy? I would like to end here. I'm not able to find that snippet that I wanted to share about Goa, but I will do it as we talk. Yes, I thank you for that data. I mean, I tried to do a more qualitative analysis, but I'm very happy that other people are sharing data. I would like to thank Dr. Jyoti Sidhana, Venkatesh Subramaniam Ganapati for sharing. This is a conversation, so I hope it will remain a conversation. But I remain committed to thinking of it not just as challenges, but also to look at it as to whether Indian women need to reinvent the definition of equality in some ways, or try to engage with universality and with some specificity. And stories of our mothers and our grandmothers and how they have contributed, can it be captured? So here's to her story. Here's to women of India who paved the path. Here's to the women whose shoulders I stand on. I'm not standing here alone. And to all the men and boys who have always been part of our journey, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your session and for highlighting many important things and also bringing to light certain very important statistics. At this point, we are at the end of the first half, but before moving forward, we would, of course, invite some questions. We would like to have some questions. We already have some questions, but in the meanwhile, as we are getting few questions in our chat box, I would also invite Mr. Charu Datta to give his concluding remarks and to kind of sum up the entire session. Over to you, sir.
Thanks. I mean, you asked me to give a concluding remark, but I think this is the beginning of a mission for all of us here. And not that we were not cognizant of what we're talking, but we've been rejuvenated. And I know how Dr. Nanda feels about this. I know her stance on this, her position on this, and what she's been doing for so many decades now, and her involvement in not only policy drives but also the policy briefs, the understanding of the situation. It's not only statistics that she was talking, but there was a lot of thought, lot of deep dive that was involved along with the statistics, and that's more important. Statistics or data is it's a collateral, it happens, but what's more important is the civil society leadership. I have always seen her as a civil society leader and an educationist and an academic, and not only
There's no
for
recording
the
option
title
up here.
that she holds,
It's
which is
removed now.
of course of immense esteem, and I always hold her very high in my pedestal, because she not only, as I said, she not only understands, but she also has a solution to help all of us um, get into a space where there is definitely equality and there's definitely equanimity, and that's very important. Thank you, Dr. Nanda, for this um, insight, and for giving all of us a purpose in life. Thank you so much. Asha has been working tirelessly in Goa, and she all about 3 decades now, even more. And she works at the last mile because that's where it matters. Um, Hence, all that we do, all that we have spoken about, be it the indices or be it the initiative, the drives, the sensitization, getting everybody together, is something that will help her uh, work, help her mission. So she's been at the forefront of many missions, and presently she is working with more than 45,000 women in Goa, in all the self-help groups and other women groups, collectives, I must say, not only groups in Goa. And she would be looking forward to a lot of support from all of us. I thank the organizers to have thought about the title so aptly and have briefed all the speakers and all the panelists today, um, and taking time out to do that. It's very common to have such programs organized, and give a topic, and you have speakers to come in and speak. But to have sensitive speakers come in and speak and share thoughts, ideas with a timeline, with a purpose, with a mission, with a work plan, means a lot. And I thank the organizers. Divya has been talking to all of us. Divya has been driving this, of course, with the leadership of the principal ma'am, Dr. Karuna Singh, the Pol Science Department, all the students here, and all of our team members from Goa Livelihoods Forum. It has been extremely collaborative and extremely um, you know uh, uh, common uh, effort and common initiative. And I think it has happened because we all believe in one thing, and that's, as we have all spoken about, giving the rightful place, handing over the rightful place, rather, redemption for what you've done and what you continue to do in spite of all this. So we are doing well as a nation. We have so much more to do, and we are on this path. And let's all join hands. And thank you for this wonderful first session. And of course, I don't know how, would you like to take questions now, or how would that happen? I would like to ask the organizers. So over to the organizers. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir, for your concluding remarks for the first session. And yes, we have a couple of questions. So I think we should address them right now. I'll read out the questions, and the team guest speakers can then choose who wants to answer the question. So the first question that we have is from Mr. Venkat Subramaniam Ganapati, and he asks how to overcome job segregation and racism in case of gender inequality. So any one of the speakers would kindly please address the question.
We should go with you, Asha ma'am. She needs to be unmuted.
Yeah. According to me, job segregation, there is lot of stereotype. We segregate jobs based on the stereotypes. Teacher's job, it should be women. Beautician, it should be women. Or some other, like if it is scientists, if they are drivers, if they are in the construction line, they should be men. So all the stereotypes are affecting the job segregation. It should be purely based on their capabilities, whatever they are capable of. Women are capable of being a pilot, being scientist. They are into, they are everywhere. Only thing they are not able to. We see not heading that department. We see them at the lower rung. So this has to change. So if we don't ignore their capabilities, if we take their capabilities into consideration, then we can do it. Thank you.
Do
Thank
you
you,
want
ma'am.
do you want me to
No,
add to that?
yes,
Yes, please add, madam. Please add.
Well, I believe that job segregation is something that happened, keeping in mind that women were somewhere different from men when it came to certain jobs, and that they were best suited for those jobs. So you had jobs like teaching, doctors. It went up till doctors. I think that was the best. And then like you said, the beauty industry. However, we do see a breaking in that. We have women in the armed forces now, and women, I think, in right now, the youth of India, the young women of India want to be in every sphere. We right now are having trainings, skill hubs. A lot of women want to be entrepreneurs. They're looking at startup, at self-reliance. So I think aspirations of women are already there. The government is making its inroads. The market has to be more open. We always keep asking the state for changes, but we never speak to the market. Speaking to power, when we say speaking to power, we mean speaking to the government agencies. But as a solution, we need to start speaking to the market. So when you speak to the market, you have to speak on two things. Number one, Miss Fernandez, yes. I thought you had a question. So you speak to the market. You need to speak about environmental sustainability. You need to speak about bringing about more inclusion of women in all fields. Then you can speak to power in the hierarchies that exist, bringing women to leadership. I think these are the three kinds of speak that we need to do now. And once we start having these conversations, we stop only looking at the state as a panacea. We start speaking to families, we start speaking to markets, we start speaking to people who will make a difference in the leadership. I do know that right now, and I keep hearing this conversation, the government of India is very, very insistent on bringing women into leadership, but those women will then have to make roads for other women. And that commitment, while we keep asking state, and I think even women as a category and as a community, if we can call ourselves that, we should have other women leaning on us. That's my solution. I think somewhere the solution cannot just be about state policy. It has to be about market, it has to be about the civil society, it has to be about the family. But women should also come together, just as men come as supporters. Women should also have because women do not network. We do not have those clubs, we do not have those places. So women networks have to be developed. Women need to create supports and be mentors to other women and girls. That will lead to a major change in the field. And I think I am here because of a lot of older women who kind of mentored me. So I like to do the same. I think that could be one way. uh, just just trying to bring some thoughts together there. Thank you.
thank you, ma'am. I think we can move to the next question. The next question is from Dr. Jyoti Sidana. She says the representation of women in senior leadership dropped to 13% in 2022 from 23% in 2020, according to a survey of over 350 large, medium, and small companies by Job for Her. So please share your views on how can we stop glass ceiling in present scenario.
uh, Asha ji, would you like to answer that? Yeah.
No, madam, please.
Okay. Well, I mean, that survey I do not have access to, so I cannot comment on that. But yes, it's true that leadership of women in different fields, and my answer would be the same, that we need to look at how we can bring more women into leadership. And that, I think, should be the work of educational institutions like your college, like my college, like Charudat ji. How can we bring more women into leadership? What are the ways in which we can propel this? The numbers are like scorecards. They give us an indication of what is to be done. I do not want to only outrage and be anxious about those numbers. How do we move forward on that? How can we bring in more? I do know there is a willingness in the government now to examine how many women can lead. But capability, we need to have leadership trainings for women, creating capabilities amongst them. Many women are capable, but many women, due to certain social conditioning, require a certain kind of guidance. They need networks. So we need to create those spaces. I suffer from the disease of hope. So I believe there is space, and we should bring about that learning, and all of us should play our part in it. We should see to it that women are in leadership positions. But yes, women also have to be team players. And while we aspire for leadership positions, we should not step back from a can do sense of responsibility, must do sense of duty. It's important that we excel in whatever we are doing, removing obstacles for those who are not able to do, and creating a voice and advocacy for other women. I think.
Can I
Yes,
say
sir.
something?
Yes, sir. Yes.
In our experience, what you've seen across states is that leadership is not a subject which is taken up, despite we have so many of having so many skill programs and all of that. Leadership is something which is not taken up specifically for the girl child, for the girl students and for the girls. uh, and that's one. And second, there's no hand holding in career path. So how, what happens to the girl after class 6, after class 10, after college? Where does she go? What are her aspirations? What are her aptitude? What would she like to do, whether STEM, whether painting, whether art, whether drama, whether theaters, whatever, or astronauts, or going to the space, rocket science. These are the areas where many of the girls at the community level are interested. But there aren't many guides or coaches who are available to help them, handhold them. So what I'm suggesting is, amongst all of us, I mean, the students and the faculty members, if we could adopt a kind of a target for ourselves, 1:1 or 1:2, each one of us take care of the career aspirations and the counseling of two girls. Be I mean, at a school level or at a college level, I leave that to you. If we could take that up, that will be the little change that we all of us can bring. I'm not talking about the educational institutions. Of course, you have large numbers and you have a structure there and a formal structure. I'm talking about the informal structure. What happens at the villages? What happens at the rural communities? Who would help them develop a career path, a career mentality? So it's not about the girl getting married off after graduation. So the parents will always worry about the girl getting. So the sooner they get her married off, it's all, good work done, and society telling them, okay, the girl has got married off. No, if she doesn't want to marry, nobody can force her. It's her choice. How do we do that? So we have to work both with the parents, the guardians, also the students, the wards. So let's take this up, 1:2 or 1:3 kind of a strategy. So each one of us responsible for 2 or 3 people. Let's first do that. Change begins with me. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. We have time for maybe a couple of more questions which we have got. So the next question is by Seema Somalwar. She asks, and her question is to Madam Principal from Miranda House. And she asks, ma'am, are entrepreneurs considered when we talk of number of female workforce participation?
Yes, entrepreneurs are definitely considered. We are looking at self reliance. However, when you look at paid work or you looked at salaries, you are definitely not including all the, in terms of the NFHS, we may not be including. But when it is at workforce, you are definitely looking at the kind of contribution they are doing to the income of the country. So they are definitely included, and they are being cited as being, as leading startups now. If you take a look at what is known as the unicorns now, which we are supporting, there are number of women who have come forward. But the only problem that one is noted when it comes to women entrepreneurs is that sometimes when it comes to family and career, or to the kind of support that a particular self-reliant industry requires, they need a certain recognition of the fact that they could be in caregiving roles. But if you take a look, you may, there are many examples from the West, I'm sure, but even in India, if an Indian example would be Indra Nui, who, if you read her very, very closely, will tell you how she managed to do that home work, balance. What is the way to do it? How to be more, bring about an equality in the home, and bring about a certain kind of an understanding of your roles and responsibilities. So I think we need to have a middle path. But yes, entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs are being encouraged. I would like to share here, since we are talking to Dempe College, that Miranda House is going to initiate an incubation lab for startups for women. And we are ready to, this has nothing to do only with Delhi. So we are looking at young women, especially from underprivileged backgrounds, and we would support them, get angel investors to support their projects, and we will handhold them till they are able to fly out of the incubation lab. So we are trying to do those things. There are some interests even from investors, and there is a buzz. So we want to make the most of it. But I agree with you that in the NFHS, when they look at salaried women, they are not looking at entrepreneurs per se. That's a point. That's a good point. I hope I answered your question. Yes, thanks.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. All the while, it seemed to me that there was some data missing about the entrepreneurs,
You
and
are very right. In the NFHS, it is missing.
when those figures seem very low, I think we are missing on that data.
We should look. That's why I'm saying we need to have a segregated database for India itself, which will
Yeah.
look at happiness index also. I feel Indian women, as they get older, are happier in some
Yes.
ways, in certain ways. So they become
Yes,
more.
happiness index. Yes, yes, that looks today. You said you should have a separate indices, set of indices for India.
Yes, sorry
Correct.
for this conversation, but we
Thank
are
you, ma'am.
breaking the conference mode. But that's what women do. They break the conference mode.
Uh, Ma'am, there is one question uh, by Sania Khan Patel. She's a student. Why women face glass ceiling and not men, and how it can be prevented?
I can jump into it
Please,
and
sir.
say why it is there, because we don't have strong advocacy, we don't have rabble rousing. How it can be stopped? First, let's be vocal about it. We are talking about whistleblowers in everything. Have we ever spoken about whistleblowers in glass ceiling, in promotion, in career path? No, we haven't. So let's do that. So when, if you have a corporate social responsibility by any organization, I'm talking about the business organizations, you are supposed to mention that in the board of the company. You're supposed to mention that in the annual report. But how many do this as mandatory to be mentioned in the board meetings about the number of women employees having been promoted in a particular organization? They don't do that. And whenever they're doing that in the annual reports, it's out of a kind of a, it's in vogue to mention that. That's not what is a systematic or a structured way of HR representing the proportion of women employed, the proportion of women whose performance have been appraised, and the proportion of women who've been given the promotion. That's not been done. That's not been done in the way that we want them to do. So now is the time when we need to put this to be made a policy with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Maybe that's probably the line department for this. For the other organizations, accordingly, to the respective line departments or the authorities, the departments. So that's a quick answer, but we have been discussing about this and we're thinking of putting this across in a much more structured and a inclusive manner. So more people to join this and be vocal about it. And it has to be in pen and paper, not about only discussing this and forgetting about it.
Yes, thank you so much, sir, for your insightful answer. At this stage, we are now formally ending the first part of the program. I once again thank all the three guests for addressing important issues, bringing very important issues to light. And of course, there will be a formal vote of thanks later on, but I think we should move on swiftly to the next part of the program. And this part of the program is also very special because here two of our students are going to uh, present on two very important topics. And this is, of course, in line with our college's motto to, of course, involve our students at every point in any program. So another aspect is, of course, this has been a conversation of very enlightened guests, but of course, I think we should also make sure that students also participate and we also have to hear what they have to say. So, with that, I would like to invite our first student presenter. Her name is Gauri Nerurkar. She is a first year student and she will be presenting on the topic that is patriarchy in everyday life. So, now I hand over to her.
So, how will I upload the presentation? Good afternoon to one and all present here. I'm Gauri Nerurkar from FYBA Dempsey College of Arts and Science. Today, I will put forth the youth perspective on the topic gender equality and how it is to be achieved. Gender equality primarily implies the access to equal opportunities, resources, and freedoms, regardless of the sexual difference. Living life to the fullest entails exploring one's talents, passion, and leading a satisfying life. It, however, is not tantamount to being treated exactly alike. For example, maternity leave is a form of proportional equality and is vital for enhancing the professional lives of females. So, from where does inequality crop up? The unequal treatment meted out to women crops up from patriarchy, a kind of society that favors male in public and private affairs. The word patriarchy has a Greek origin and literally means the rule of the father. Originally, the term implied the male dominance in a household. However, through the centuries, it has come to connote the gender roles in the socio-political sphere as well. The archaic concept of keeping women confined to bearing and rearing children is an example of a gender role. Patriarchy has more or less a biological basis. The production of distinct sex hormones leads to males and females appearing to differ in physical strength and aggression. But this does not extend to their capabilities and conscious levels. Sadly, the correlation of the two has given rise to patriarchal outlook. Toxic masculinity stems from patriarchy. It involves attaching certain roles and behaviors to males, which bears consequences to society overall. Data reveals that men are largely susceptible to drug abuse, alcoholism, and resorting to antisocial behaviors. And the main reason for such a phenomenon is that men are seen as weak if they express their emotions openly or cry. And this leads to bottling up of emotions and culminates into falling prey to addiction. This clearly shows that a gender equal society will profit both sexes and not just women. Patriarchy is manifested everywhere. It may present itself in an obvious form or assume a subtle character. In the professional sphere, patriarchy dwells in the downgrading of female authority. More often than not, a female at the helm of affairs hurts the male chauvinist ego. Men who are subordinates often resort to harassing and disobeying their female seniors. In the political arena, women at several instances have a tough time in decision making and ensuring the compliance to authority from males. Women are often considered weak and incompetent in a leadership role. Religion, too, is accused of forwarding patriarchal ideology, from not being ordained into the clergy, being subjected to oppressive dressing practices, to praying one sidedly for the long life of a spouse. Every religion has conveniently turned its dogmas to favor males. Patriarchy is covertly expressed in domestic affairs through phenomena like discouragement of female employment, early marriages, marital rape, domestic violence, dowry debt, sidelining of females, and giving preferential treatment to males. A survey conducted recently by the Pew Research Center of America found that 87% of Indians believe that a wife must obey a husband. This is such a disheartening revelation. In the socio-cultural sphere, there exist certain conventional ideas that bear sexist elements, such as women are supposed to be submissive, shy, and obedient, while men ought to display aggression, dominance, and rebellious behaviors. So, how does patriarchy affect society? First, a myth with respect to separation of roles and jobs between male and female. It is often said that men and women have different kinds of skill sets, aptitudes, and talents. So certain jobs are supposed to be for males and certain jobs are supposed to be for females. Well, according to research conducted by the American Psychological Association, there are negligible differences otherwise between males and females apart from the anatomical ones. So the so-called masculine tasks can be performed by females with equal ease and capacity. And there is no such thing as male jobs and female jobs. Toxic family life and toxic work culture are inevitable consequences of a patriarchal setup. This causes mental, emotional, and physical stresses to both sexes. Patriarchy also creates an exploitative relationship among humans and stagnates our overall progress. The pressure of taking up a male job or bearing being mocked at suppresses talents among men. There is also a huge underrepresentation of men because they are seen as feminine jobs. So how do we eradicate this issue? Step one, start from school. John Locke rightly said that a child's mind is like a blank slate and his later behaviors are shaped by his experiences. In a school, a child comes in contact with children from diverse backgrounds. The school thus becomes a unifying element in the formative years of an individual. At this stage, it is essential that teachers be gender unbiased. Sexist portrayals are a menace when it comes to the media world. Information and visuals tend to be quickly disseminated through media, whether it's social media, broadcast media, or print media. Censorship on sexist content assumes prime significance. Household tasks such as cleaning, cooking, or shopping for groceries should not be sex specific. Both males and females should learn to survive independently. Today, more and more women are getting employed, so it would be biased to hold them solely responsible for household work. Parents, teachers, and society at large should allow women to voice out their opinion be assertive, and take the lead. Most importantly, government regulations are necessary to induce a structural change. So let us see what efforts the government of India has taken to bridge the gender gap. Firstly, the Hindu Succession Amendment Act of 2005, which provides for co-partnership inheritance, that is, daughters and sons both have equal right to inherit property. The Supreme Court has also ruled to this effect in 2020. Then we have the Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Marriage Act 2019, which is better known as the Triple Talaq Bill. It criminalizes the concept of instant divorce by Muslim men to their wives. There have been several other acts that have worked in favor of women, such as abolition of sati, prohibition of dowry, prohibition of child marriage. The Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme promotes the education of girls. The constitution of the Nirbhaya Fund supports the initiatives that protect dignity of women and ensure their safety in India. Several women safety apps like the Arya app by Indian Railways have also been launched. Some of the recent developments have been increasing the marriageable age from 18 to 21 years for women, allowing the admission of women into the NDA Sainik schools, and the Goa government recently launched the Pink Force in police department to prevent crimes. So although we could see a gloomy picture of the reality, we simply cannot overlook the progress we have made so far as a society. Today, as compared to a century ago, we have a lot more women pursuing a career in almost every field. Men, too, have begun to shed their sexist attitude towards rearing children and doing household work. Women are learning to say no to oppressive practices and are breaking the shackles of the patriarchal outlook. After all, in order to achieve an egalitarian society, it is required that we collaborate not as men and women separately, but as humans on the whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauri, for that wonderful presentation on a very, very important topic. Next, I would like to invite another student, uh, Samir Sheikh, from third year BA, and his topic is political economy of gender. So now I hand over to Mr. Samir Sheikh.
I have a question, ma'am. Can I ask?
Somebody.
In case anyone has questions for the students, we would take them after our next presenter finishes his presentation. Thank you. Over to Mr. Samir.
Namaste, good afternoon everyone. My name is Samir. Topic which I want to share, I want to share what is gender.
Namaste, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samir from the Economics Department of the MBA College of Arts and Science, and the topic on which I like to talk today is gender equality, realities, and shared aspirations. Before I start with my topic, I'd like you all to visit back your childhood memories. That what was the first idea of gender which was given to you? I can say that if you were to born on a different part of Earth, on a different corner of Earth, the entire idea of gender would have been totally different. Remember the time when it was told to you, don't cry, because girls cry. Men don't cry. They hide their pain in their muscles. They become strong. You don't wear t-shirts because that's what boys do. Girls should dress very sensibly, very different than boys. You should wash utensils, you shouldn't go to school. The entire idea of gender equality is actually embodied in us by the society in which we live and the culture which we practice and religion which we follow. If you were to change these variables, I think the entire idea of gender which you believe in would have been totally different. What, according to World Health Organization, gender refers to the characteristics of women, men, girls, and boys that are socially constructed. This includes norms, behavior, roles associated with being a woman, man, boy, girl, or boy, as well as relationships with each other. The word socially constructed by society, which was developed many years ago, as society kept on progressing after industrial age, now into we are moving into age of AI, but it never got evolved. The norms never got updated, and the roles which we used to practice back then has now totally been different. The roles have become more and more dynamic day by day, and these norms, this social construction of roles, day after day, are becoming what we call as taboos, or if call as stereotypes, that men should do this, these are the roles reserved for a certain gender or a certain day. Do you know that seven different genders exist? Seven different gender fluid, gender, intersex, non-conformity, and transgender. Century as a kid was born after 2001. I strongly believe that more than the society, it's our brain. Let's allow our own brain and rationality to decide our own gender identity, who I consider myself to be. It's okay to give freedom to your own self, that either you are a boy or a woman or a transgender. Let your heart decide your social orientation, gay, lesbian, straight, bi, asexual, or queer. And I'm not saying that we aren't made different. Yeah, nature has taken the pride in making us all of us unique. Either you can be male, female, or intersex. And the gender roles which were assigned to us can be changed, can be modified, can be altered. Why not? Tomorrow I decide that I'll stay at home and be a homemaker for my society, for my house, and let my wife to work, go and work out and be the breadwinner of the home. Let me decide. Let I have the autonomy over me to be what I want to be. My sexual behavior, it might be heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, or celibate, isn't it? Gender inequality. There are different reasons for gender equality as far as I went when I tried to find about the topic. There are few reasons which came across very prominent, like uneven access to education. Like in India itself, there were many leaders who fought for this. The prominent names, if we think back, are Jyotirao Phule, Savitri Bai Phule. Back then, there's a of lot of opposition when when put forward the thought of getting the education for girl child, lack of employment opportunities, like a certain gender being preferred for a certain job. Like as we move to North India, it was said that men are preferred because they can contribute more to the wealth of the house. They can work in the field, they can earn more as compared to female, which is not true actually at the present time. But the facts were different back then. Lack of legal protection, the legal protection and the equality of rights which we enjoy today was very low, very not that equal back then. Lack of bodily autonomy, poor medical care, and lack of religious freedom. I like you to focus on this point. Lack of freedom of religious practices. There have been certain religion and cultural practices where have been it is not allowed to look at to the world through a different perception where everybody is equal. Lack of political representation. Though India as a big nation, we have seen that there has been lack of political resolution. Though the number of female participation in parliament has increased, no doubt in our female prime minister, female speaker, female defense minister, and even presently female finance minister also. But have we ever seen a transgender or a transgender speaker or a transgender prime minister? Though the constitution grants us equal rights and equal opportunity and equal protection of law, everybody is equal before the law. Every law is equal for everyone, regardless of caste, creed, even gender. But is it possible? It was able to possible. It is because there is a bias in our head which doesn't allow us to open the windows of new thought. Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right but also necessary for the foundation of peaceful and prosperous sustainable world, because everybody is an equal member of society according to at least our constitution per se. We provide them, consider them an equal part of the society, but when we go into practice, this fact loses its base. Here to take reference to a great literate Indian economist Amartya Sen, who draws the attention problem of India's missing women. Missing women is not is the definition of a concept where the number of women who can be able to participate in the workforce and contribute to the GDP are missing. The difference between the demographic of male and female number and McKinsey Global Institution, India can increase 2025 GDP would estimate from to at 483 million by between 16 to 60% simply by enabling women to participate in the economy with men. Just imagine, like a big difference can be seen by just allowing and providing equal opportunities for women. And here we are not even talking about transgenders or other genders and their participation to GDP.
Here is a small article from Times.
Here is a small article from Times. 92 guest towns are unable to participate in any economic activity, and half of them education. Though is in GDP due to the report we are saying the report World Bank report. The big bias in gender equality, inequality, ideas which we follow generations to generation.
People employed by India includes UND. A study was conducted in the University of Massachusetts. It said that the reports give us substantial evidence that LGBT people are limited in their human rights in a such as loss of labor time, loss of productivity, under investment in human capital, and location of human resources. As per the case of India, though there was a bill, there was a right, protection of rights in 2019. Just hold on.
Your internet will go. Okay, next.
Hello.
Sorry for the network failure.
As per the report, bill was passed in 2019.
As per the report passed 2019 against the discrimination which transgender people face. I like you people to visit in your memory lane back What was the image of transgenders which you remember? If you have traveled in Indian Railway in a long distance from Goa to many other states, you will remember a transgender person coming and begging for money for you, like clapping hands and begging money for you. In movies also, the gender has been very harshly depicted, running a prostitution ring or selling drugs. The ground reality is far more.
By Human Rights
In
Commission
India,
2018,
by the
96%
Human
of
Rights
transgender
Commission
undenied
2018,
jobs and those who
96%
take
of those
low-paying or
undenied jobs and
undignified
those who
work
take
for
low paying or
livelihood, like
undignified
sex
work
workers
for
and begging. The
livelihood,
first
like
ever study
sex
on
workers and
rights of
begging. The first ever study on rights of transgender also revealed that 92% of
participate in
transgenders are
any form of
deprived of their
economic
right to
activity in the
participate in
country,
any form of
and with
economic
even
activity in the country,
qualified ones refuse
and with
job.
even qualified ones
Only
refuse job.
6% of the transgenders were
Only
employed
6%
in
of the
private sector
transgenders
or
were employed
NGOs
in private
like them.
sectors or
Like
NGOs
them,
like
while the
them,
monthly
like
income,
them, while the
only
monthly
1% of the
income,
transgenders
only
were noticed to
1% of
be
the
above
transgenders were
than
noticed to be above
25,000. The
the
majority,
25,000. The majority,
26.35%, earn between
26.35%, earn
this number.
between this number. The
Revealed
report
that around
further revealed that
23% are
around 23%
engaged in
are
sex
compelled to
work, which
engage in
has
sex
high
work, which has
health-related
high
risk, which result in the
health-related risk,
trans
which result
people
in the
being
trans people being
49 times more
49
risk
times
of
more
living in
risk of
HIV
living in
compared to the
HIV
general
compared to
population.
the general population.
Yeah, and during the
Yeah,
first
and
year in
during
our
the first
college, we
year
tried
in
to
our college,
undertake
we
a
tried to
small
conduct a
experiment.
small
In any,
experiment. In any other democracy in the world or any other
has never
nation,
been
it has
observed
never
a
been
transgender
observed a
being a speaker,
transgender being a
and the
speaker.
experience
And the
itself was
experience
very
itself was very
soul awakening and
soul
very
awakening
enlightening to
and very
see. Because
enlightening
when
to
I
see.
was
Because
dressed,
when I was dressed as a transgender to enact the role of a transgender
the
speaker,
experience itself
the
was totally
experience
different.
itself was
People were looking at me from
totally
different
different.
eyes.
People were
Kids were running
looking at
away
me from
scared,
different eyes. Kids
and
were running away
I
scared.
we cannot
And
imagine the pain which
I
they go
we
through
cannot imagine the
actually.
pain which they go
And
through
all the women out
actually.
there who wear
And
saris,
all the
hats
women
off to
out there
you.
who wear
A quote
saris,
from a
hats
movie,
off to you.
Kingsman
A
Secret
quote from a
Service,
movie,
said
Kingsman
that
Secret Service. It
suit
is
is the
said
armor of a
that
modern
suit
day
is the
man,
armor of a
modern
modern
knight.
day man,
But
modern
I'll
day
say
knight.
sari
But
is
I'll
the
say
armor
sari
of a
is the
modern
armor
day
of
nari.
a modern day
You have
nari.
to work and manage everything.
You have to work and manage everything at the same. You have a family, work, your office, and everything at the
I
same
feel
time look
personally
glorious. Hats
that
off to you.
managing a
I feel
sari is far
personally
more difficult than
that
managing a
managing a
nuclear.
sari is far more difficult than managing a nuclear warhead.
In India, many women, many
In India,
great warriors
many
carry
women, many great warriors, many great men were known by their mother's name, like Dwarki Nandan Krishna, Anjaneya Hanuman, Gangaputra Bhim. And yet, we see a lot of discrimination happening in the
characters which
society.
was
There were
celebrated in
different
Indian epics.
characters which were celebrated in
Characters
Indian
like
epics,
Kaldanalish.
even
So
even the
when
characters
and
like
where we lack
Kaldanaleshwar. So when and
equality,
where we
because we have
lacked
been
the idea of
learning and
equality,
depicting
because we
and
have been
practicing
learning and
certain ideas
depicting
of
and
equality, which was
practicing
there
certain ideas of
in
equality,
our
which was there
ancient
in our ancient
stories.
texts and
But
in
I
our
think the
ancient stories.
implementation fails.
But I think the implementation failed somewhere. I think you recognizes the great person, the picture, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. And if you need people like Chhatrapati
Mother
Shivaji
like
Maharaj,
Mirabai to
you
write
need
a
like
quote from ex-Prime
Mirabai to
Minister
write
Atal
a quote
Bihari Vajpayee ji.
uh,
Rightly
Prime
said,
Atal Bihari Vajpayee
strong
ji.
man doesn't make nation strong.
Doesn't make nation strong.
Daughters make the
Sisters,
nation strong.
mothers
They are the backbone of
strong
family,
nation,
the
strong nation.
backbone of
They
our
are the
society.
backbone of family, the backbone.
Yeah, in the world, there women are equal to men,
In
but
the
at the same
women
time, they earn
equal to men,
17.6% less than their male counterparts.
7 than
Labels aside, we all are equal and we all are
label
valid.
we
Though
all
we
equal
say we
and
have
we all
created
are
a
valid.
society
Though we
around
say we
men,
have
like patriarchal
created a
society,
society
but most of the
around
men
men,
who are in
patriarchal
jail, most of the
society,
people who are in
most of
jail
the
are men.
men are in
Most of the people
people who are
victim
in
of violent
most of
crime
the
are men. Most of
victim
the
of
people
violent
on
crime
road
are
without
men.
house
Most of the
are
people
men.
on
So
road house
even men
are men.
having a
So
society around them
even men
created upon their
having a
base are.
society around them
So I'd
created
like
upon
to
their
ask this
base are not
question
happy.
to my
So I like to
elders, to
ask this
everyone present
question
here.
to
What
my
kind of
elders, to
society we
everyone
have
present here.
created where
What
people
kind of
are not
society we have
allowed to
created where
freely
people are
express
not
themselves and
allowed to
freely
freely
participate in
express
the activities
themselves
they
and
want?
freely participate in the activities they want to by following the law, of course.
Example of gender equality, we
Example of
all know
gender
this, like
equality, we
forbidden
all
from driving,
know
right to
this,
divorce,
like
access to
forbidden
education, right to
driving,
travel and
divorce,
professional obstacles.
and right to
Why it is
professional
important?
obstacles.
Companies companies with a female board
Why
representative
doesn't
outperform
companies
those
with a
who have
female
no
board
female in their
representative
board?
outperform
This
those
is
who have no
the growth
female in their
leader as
board? businesses would include female as a leadership better. Organization with gender diversity participates, address better
Why it
talent.
is important for the success of our organization? It
Why it
is
is
right
important
thing
for
to
the
do,
success of our
smart thing to
organization.
do.
It is right thing to do, smart thing
Gender
to do,
equality must become a
and conclude.
lived
Reality must
reality.
become
It
a
will become,
lived
it will come from
reality. It
determination,
will
guts and
become.
heart.
It
It
will come
will
from
come
determination,
from a
guts, and
man,
heart.
from
It
the
will
men and women
come
who
from a
believe.
man, from the men and women who believe they can make a difference, and we must close gender
Like though we say we
India's
all are equal, I
dream.
want one day
We
there
say
will
we
be
are
equal
equal. I
participation of
want
women
one day there will
and
be
men
equal
in the
participation of
parliament, and
women
we'll have
and
our
men
own
in the
third
parliament, and
gender
we'll have
or
our
other
own
gender
third
speaker and prime
gender
minister.
or
Then
other
only we
gender
can say
speaker and
that
prime
India is
minister. Then only we can say that India is a country where everybody is
equal before
equal.
the law and law is equal
Everybody
for
is
everyone.
equal before the law, and law is equal for everyone, and we'll
Society
have
where
equal
actually
representation,
we
and
all
we'll
are
create a
happy
society where
keeping our
actually we all are
inequalities
happy
aside.
keeping our
So
inequalities
this was
aside.
my presentation. Thank
So
you.
this was my presentation. Thank you.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir. Can I ask?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
We were just discussing about the gender equality, sir. But simply, it is just sticking on to only such kind of sessions or webinars or in presentations only, sir. Till now, in India, we have only one prime minister, women prime minister, as well as only one president of the country. The women are not at all given any kind of importance at all. No freedom. First of all, the fundamental, basic fundamental right to freedom is also not being given to a lady. Sir. Don't do like this. Don't sit like that. Don't laugh at people. Something like that. Don't come out with such kind of dress. All these things are made to restrict the women. Then where do we find? Recently, we have seen Padma Shri awards were awarded to one or two male people, whereas only 27 awards were given to female people. Why is my country not, is my India not talented to have women getting Padma Shri or like that? Um, please answer to my question, sir.
I think it will be better if our guest speakers would address this question. So maybe Asha ma'am or Charudatta sir would like to answer this question.
I was really happy to hear the session on gender inequality. Uh, you brought out so many issues, and some of them are very, very close to my heart. Uh, it's true that we cannot say that we have gender equality till a certain section in this society is still marginalized. They are not given any opportunity, they are not even considered as human beings. We forget about all other equalities, all other rights. So, madam, you are right when you are saying that females, they are not seen in many of the occupations or in leadership position, and especially the political leadership. Political leadership, our country has a history of having Mrs. Indira Gandhi as the Prime Minister of the country. So we really in that, but now that is a thing of the past. But our fight is a long fight, and we are struggling with the political representation of females. So it's really sad to see that we have to struggle so much for small little things also, as you mentioned, that how do you sit, how do you speak, how do you walk? It all starts from there. So it is the conditioning uh, from right from the childhood. which happens. Like for females, there are so many rules, but for the male counterpart in the same family, they can do whatever they want. So, how the leadership will happen when a girl is not even allowed to express herself, express her view, or even a small decision making thing, their views are not considered. So, it starts in a family right from the beginning. How we treat our females in our families? Why we do not give them the opportunities to express themselves what they want? So if it happens right from the beginning, then only the women leadership will be will happen, and they will take charge of themselves, and they will come forward. I am saying they, it is we only. We are doing this in our society. We as family members, we as females also, we have been conditioned like that by our elders, by the society. So if that changes, then only we can expect all these things. These are the things, and as I say, gender is all in our minds. We are stereotyping that this job is for females, this thing is for males. So we are conditioned with the stereotypes. That first has to eliminate. Thank you.
Charudatta sir, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I think what Asha mentioned, and I'll just add on to what she said. It all starts from me. That will be an approach that I would suggest. So, high level, country level leadership is something we should aspire for. But what I would suggest is let's start doing this at our own houses, at our own families, with our own kids to begin with. So, so allowing them to take up leadership roles, allowing others in the peers, encouraging them, and asking them to be independent, to be more independent on their careers or on their you know uh, uh, lifestyles or attitudes and behavior, and more importantly to take their own decisions. So we should only be the guide, we should not be the decision maker on their behalf. There is a big difference between that. So how do we parent them? Are we parents who understand this? That's the first thing. Are we brothers and sisters who understand this? So everything begins from our own example, our own house, or our own institution. So let's do that first. That's, I think that there lies the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. And now, with this, we have formally come to an end to the national webinar. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank, first of all,
Share the
all the
Google Meet
guest
link. You are
speakers,
saying that
Madam Asha,
kindly join Google Meet to
Charudatta sir, and also Madam
But
Vijaya Lakshmi,
no, but
who,
so many people are
due to
texting
paucity
that.
of time, could not be with us till
that's
the
the
end.
old one.
Uh, I would like to again thank our college
Current
and
ones.
our principal
Meet link will
in
paste.
specifically for always encouraging us to carry out such programs where it benefits not just the teaching faculty and not just the students but also society at large. And today's program, I think,
Join
is testament to
Google
that.
Meet.
I would like to thank my department,
You can
Department of
post link
Computer
here also.
Science, the in charge of the department, Dr. Karuna
Feedback
Singh, for
form.
again
Just
pushing
write.
us
Later we'll put
and
feedback
Feedback form
encouraging
we
form.
have
us
posted here.
to organize
Yeah.
such types of
Posted here.
programs. I would also like to thank my colleague, Miss Divya,
No, I have posted.
because this was her brainchild, and without her reaching out to the guest speakers, and of course the guest speakers accepting her invitation, we would not be able to organize such a program. And of course, I would also like to thank our two student speakers, Ms. Gauri Nerurkar and Mr. Samir Sheikh, for the wonderful presentation, which was also not just enlightening
but also very encouraging for all of us. And of course, thanks to all the participants who participated and not just participated but also asked important questions and who stuck with us till the end of the program. Thank you, one and all, for your patient hearing. Karuna ma'am, would you like to add something?
Yes, ma'am, I would like to thank personally all the speakers. Sorry we couldn't remain online on camera because behind the screen also there are a whole lots of work that we had to deal with. So I thank for bearing with us. It was very nice. Divya helped us in getting in touch with uh, Asha sir, madam and Charudat sir. Hope to have, I believe ma'am is in Goa itself. It'll be nice if we could invite you here or we could have some meeting with you so that we can work on this line because we have our students project that they do at TP level. If we can look at it in one small way, how to understand gender inequality and how to bring equality. I'll share my personal view and one last, it's very, what to say, the idea of gender equality is very personal to me. Uh, what you said, the last point, that it has to begin at home. We have to train our children not to think as a female because we teach our children, male and female, what is male thinking and what is female thinking. Don't make your children male or female bias right from the beginning. We have to make them understand and train. It's a mind, they have to get to understanding of processing how to think, and it has to be think as a human being rather than becoming a male or a female with their own mindset. I think mother has to play a very big role. I believe fathers have come ahead, but I believe mothers have to play a very big role in not showing their daughters that you have to get married after a certain level of education. You have to do what you want to do, that should be there. Marriage should not be shown to them as the door or as their livelihood. I can talk a little more, but I would like to rest with by this small remark. I hope it was fine with you all. And thank you, madam. My personal thank for all of you, and a huge thanks to all the participants who have joined us here as well as on YouTube. Uh, Thank you, madam, and thank you, sir. So we would
Thank
like to,
you so much.
thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I would like to then, we would like to disconnect then. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
Good day.
you. Good day.